Indie pop beats. Today, I'm going to teach you all how to make indie pop type beats inside of FL Studio, or literally any other DAW also. This is going to be a fun one today, so I don't know about you, but I say let's just get right into it. But the first thing we need to figure out is what even is indie pop? And how is it any different from indie rock? Although both genres do have a pretty similar vibe, there are some differences. Although it may sound obvious, indie rock takes a lot more influence from soft rock and classic rock genres, while indie pop builds more on a pop sound, naturally. This means with indie rock, you might hear a lot harsher guitar tones with more distortion and effects on them, whereas with indie pop, it's going to be a lot more light and fluffy and bubbly. Also, a lot of indie rock drums naturally build on kind of the classic rock drum pattern. Whereas with indie pop, you're going to hear much more of an upbeat, dancey, four on the floor type drum sound. Of course, there's many indie pop songs that use the classic rock drum pattern and vice versa, but today we're going to be focusing on the four on the floor pattern. So now that we have a basic understanding of what indie pop actually is, we can start building out this track. So step one here, I'm just going to put down a simple four on the floor drum pattern and figure out what tempo we want to use so that we just have a nice basis to build off of for this track. So for indie pop, you don't really have to use live drums. Although I do love playing and recording drums, I probably won't even do it for this video. So just as if you were making any other beat, your sound selection is going to be very important. And the sounds that you want to look for here are like vintage, old school drum machine type sounds. If you just search up like old drum machine sound pack or drum sampler sound pack, something like that, you'll probably find some good sounds. But I also have a lot of sounds like this in my vintage drum kit, link in the description below. So this drum pattern is super easy to make. It's only a couple clicks. You can right click on the kick, hit 4, and it'll input a 4 on the floor pattern for you. And then you just want to put the snare on every other one. This tempo is a little bit fast, so we're going to slow it down a little bit. We'll go with 118, perhaps. And then if you get a closed hi-hat, you can right-click and hit 2. So that's just a very, very basic 4 on the floor pattern right there, but if you want to get kind of funky, kind of fancy with it, we can take an open hi-hat and put it on the off beats here like this. And now we can safely say that we are moving and grooving here. However, if you don't want to get this dancey with it, that's perfectly fine. Maybe just take your open hat and put it like at the end here. And then also there's a lot of different ways that you can embellish this drum pattern as well. One thing that I would recommend is to bring down the velocity of every other closed hat. So if you hit K, it brings up the velocity menu and you can just go like this. And then also I like to turn up the swang a little bit here. And then you can also continue this pattern over and just maybe end with a double snare hit. You could also add in a couple more kicks in there as well, like this. You could add a couple accenting snares like this. You can do whatever your heart desires. Feel free to mess around with it and just make the track your own. So now what I want to do actually is add in some chords here with a specific kind of pad sound. So for this track, I specifically want a pad sound that kind of swells up a little bit and then cuts off. So it kind of sounds like zzz, 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 zzz. So I'm going to show you how to make a pad like that inside of Serum. You can use whatever synth plugin or actual synth that you want. So we're just going to take the basic sawtooth wave, put a little low pass filter on it. I'm going to turn the voices up to 2, and now we just have this very basic pad sound. But we need this pad sound to have a little bit of movement to it. So there's a few different ways that we can do that. The first way that I think is the easiest is just to take the attack and push it to the right a little bit. And there we have our little swelling pad sound. But the thing with this is that we'll need to actually play the chords every time we want that swell to happen. So another way that we could do it is to get rid of this envelope, and then we're going to take an LFO and assign it to the level, and now bring the level all the way down and bring this like pretty much all the way up. And now you want to take this LFO point and move it all the way to the right, and we'll have something that sounds like this. And that's just me holding down on the keys. Obviously, it sounds very EDM right now, but in the context of the song, it'll sound a little bit better. So now once we have that, we can go in and start making some chords. So for most indie genres, what you want to do is take a basic little chord progression, usually no more than like 4 to 6 chords, and then just take all the triads and turn them into like 7th or 9th chords. So if we just have a basic little chord progression like this, we would essentially indie-fy this by going like this. Boom, 7th chord. Boom, 7th chord. Boom. 7th chord. Boom. Not a 7th chord, but that's fine. And now it turns into this. So now that chord progression goes from very basic, kind of cheesy, to now having that dreamy indie pop kind of feel. So now that we have the chords and the drums in there, we can go pretty much any direction we want with this. We've got a really good basis to build on. So I think I'm going to go with a little nylon string guitar. Include that in the video where I gave a neat little thumbs up. All right, next thing I'm gonna do here just to keep this thing moving and grooving is record a little shaker. Okay, now we definitely need some bass. I'm gonna record a bass guitar, but you can absolutely use a synth bass for this. I think because of these synth chords, a synth bass would actually go really good with this. But I need to get my practice in on the bass guitar, so I'm gonna record that. So now that we have our bass line in there, we need a catchy little lead melody with our electric guitar. If you don't have an electric guitar, that's fine. You can use a synth lead or pluck sound, something like that. Alright, so for the electric guitar, we added some strums. You can do this with some synth keys or maybe like an electric piano sound. And I added just a little bit of like a repetitive melody. Just this little thing right here. I like to add these into my beats a lot, just these very repetitive guitar melodies that have this kind of like feel to it. It gives it kind of a sense of familiarity and just adds another layer to the whole guitar vibe in general. But now I think I want to record some live claps. Okay, one of those should work. So honestly, at this point, we're almost done here. I think there's just a couple more things we can add to spice this beat up a little bit. One thing that we can definitely do is add in some higher pitched strings just to fill out the melody a little bit more. So at this point, I think we're pretty much ready to mix this beat. I'm not going to go too deep into the whole mixing thing. If you want to check out an older video that I made about mixing and mastering your beats, that'll be up here. So as you can see right here on the left, we've got a lot of recorded tracks. So just to make sure we get rid of anything we're not using, I'm going to go to Tools, Macros, and then Purge Unused Audio Clips. So now everything left over is stuff that we're actually using. So that means we can safely double click on this and do Control L, and now everything is assigned to its own mixer track. Now, this is pretty ugly, so you might want to rename these before you actually go ahead and Control L them, because then you're going to have to figure out what all these are and rename them, but it's not a huge deal for me personally. But I just go in and I know, okay, this is nylon number 1. So we'll just rename it nylon 1. So since we recorded the nylon twice, I'm going to Control click both of these and then find an empty mixer track at the end here, right click down here, route to this track only, and then we can also pan one far to the left and then the other one to the right. And then I'll also do the same thing for all the claps, route them to one mixer track. When I have a bass guitar sound, I like to put an EQ on it. The EQ is usually cutting off around like 60 to 70 hertz down here, because you don't really need any of those super low frequencies, and they end up just clashing with the kick anyways. And then also boost a little bit around the low mid frequencies. And then the way that I get a really nice, really clean electric guitar lead sound, I use CLA guitars. Whenever it loads, I use it. And then I already have a preset made, but you can just copy the settings if you want. The main thing is to turn on this reamp to clean. That's just such a nice classic sound there. All right, so really the last thing that we have to do here is just lay out the beat, which is not too complicated. Most of this is totally up to you how you actually want to do it. Generally, a good rule of thumb when you're laying out your beats is to build from low energy to high energy. So it's pretty common for me to start out with just like the main guitar pattern or something, and then maybe bring in the shaker or something here, along with the pad. And then to really build up the tension before everything else drops in, I like to cut out the shaker here. Obviously, there's a lot of other ways that you can make a little tension build and release drop like that, but cutting out specific instruments before a bunch more instruments come in is a pretty common way to do it. And then these two guitar patterns kind of clash a little bit with each other. So I'm just going to make the main lead play first. And then for this next section, I'm going to take out the tambourine because it's a pretty high energy instrument. And then you can also take out some other instruments as well, just to kind of differentiate this section from the other one. You can also add in some new instruments or something, maybe some electric piano or some real piano or whatever else you want to put in there. But anyways, I think that is pretty much going to do it for me in this video here today. I hope you guys were able to learn at least a thing or two, and now you can make some dope indie pop type beats. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Let me know if you like the beat. Also, let me know what other tutorials you might want to see. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure you guys go check out my Instagram and all the other social media nonsense down in the description below. And I'll see you guys next time.